Coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, you'll hear from head coach Josh McDaniels as he met with the media on Monday at the Intermountain Healthcare Performance Center. A few sound bites from him, plus Michael Ginnitti, Spotrac.com. He'll join the show to talk about a potential Josh Jacobs contract extension, plus just salary cap in general, how the Raiders can make a few restructures here and there and open up more cap space for the upcoming season. But mainly we'll talk all things Josh Jacobs. Your calls and texts will close out the show. It's all coming up on Tuesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, November 29th. 2022.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. And won. And won. And won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the Locked On Raider podcast free and available on all platforms. Plenty to get to on today's show as we still kind of taking a look back at the victory over the Seattle Seahawks. I know I didn't get to talk about on Monday's show a lot of the game. Really just focused in on Josh Jacobs and Max Crosby and the impact that they had. And really, in particular, Josh Jacobs, of course, will be very Josh Jacobs heavy as well today. But all in all, I'll just say off top before we get to some Josh McDaniels sound bites from his media session he had on Monday at Raiders HQ, I think that the team in general looked a lot better. And what I mean by that, I don't mean they looked a lot better like, man, this is a playoff team, this, that. I mean, I'm not even talking about the playoffs. You know that. Haven't said that in a while. It's just talking about game to game. But they felt a lot more comfortable. At least they looked a lot more comfortable to me on Sunday, especially defensively. Looked like guys knew their assignments, knew where they were supposed to be. Do they have a long way to go? Absolutely. No doubt about it. But it did look like they were starting to figure things out a little bit, and they were supposed to understand, you know, what Patrick Graham was asking them to do. Denzel Perryman did a good job in coverage. We know that that's not his strength. I thought Trayvon Merrick did a good job. Does he have room to grow? Absolutely. He's got to do a lot better than he's done, but he did well. Chandler Jones, without recording a sack, I thought he did well. And the Raiders got pushed from the interior part of the defensive line, something I touched about briefly on Monday's show. Andrew Billings, Bilal Nichols, even Jerry Tillery, you know, had a hand in that. Cleve Ferrell as well. Don't want to shortchange him. So all in all, I thought guys made plays when they needed to. Still, like I said, a long way to go, but it felt like and it looked like to me, just observing the game from a distance, felt like they were starting to understand what they're being asked to do. Now, want to get into some sound bites from head coach Josh McDaniels, just a couple of them. As a matter of fact, he had a pretty lengthy media session on Monday, about 17 minutes long. Just got a couple sound bites that I want you to hear. And the first one is just the opening statement. After they flew back from Seattle, of course, Josh McDaniels got on the film, started studying the film, started looking at it, breaking it down. This is what he had to say about the game versus Seahawks and the Raiders' 40-34 victory.
Well, after watching the tape, I think the effort and the way the guys competed throughout the whole entirety of the game stood out. We certainly were far from perfect in all three phases. So still a lot to learn from, a lot to improve on. I think that's the great part is, you know, you battle and fight and scratch and claw and come away with a victory in a tough place to play against a good team that's really well coached. And still there's a lot of things we can improve on and get better from. So I think it's our guys have really kind of, I think, figuring out kind of how they need to play together in all three phases. We had some complementary football swings there where we did some good things together, and then we also did some things where we put the other side in a disadvantage. So there's some things to learn from there as well. But when we play well together in all three phases, we really try to, you know, give ourselves an advantage as best we can. And there was some good situations there yesterday that came up. So guys earned the day off, and we'll get rolling here on the Chargers.
So there you go. Opening statement right there from head coach Josh McDaniels, just kind of summing up the game in general, what he saw on film as he was breaking it down on Monday morning before he met with the media. And I think that most folks, for the most part, could agree with pretty much everything he said there. It was good to see the victory, but obviously they still have a long way to go. Now, just a couple sound bites on, you know, decisions that may be a little bit questionable, decisions that we actually talked about on the show on Monday that I didn't even agree with. And one was the field goal that the Raiders took at the end of the first half, where there was about 14 seconds left on the clock. And instead of taking a shot in the end zone, Josh McDaniels said, Daniel Carlson, go out there and kick your field goal and get 3 points on the board. I thought it was mismanagement of time. I didn't like when the Raiders called their final timeout. Thought that was a mistake, but I'm not the coach, just a guy sitting there on the couch observing the game. But here's Josh McDaniels' explanation on that field goal at the end of the first half. Pretty lengthy explanation from Josh McDaniels. And you don't have to agree with what he's saying, but I can appreciate the fact that he had something to say. Like there was a decision that went into his mind, and he breaks down what he was thinking when it happened. I thought it was a really good answer from head coach Josh McDaniels.
I think we got the ball with, I don't know, a little over 5 minutes to go in the second quarter. And, some teams have a philosophy. They just play offense. Some teams want to try to secure the last possession of the quarter if you could. We happened to make that decision, and we wanted to try to go ahead and finish the half with the ball and try to score some points. That particular scenario, when we use our last timeout, I want to say it was 14 seconds. Okay, so it's 14 seconds. Actually, it was 21 seconds. I think he scrambled, right? So it's 14 seconds, and we're at the 13 or 14-yard line. No timeouts. So you're really, if you throw it short, there's really no change in the accuracy of the field goal. So throwing it short underneath would have done nothing other than force us into a scramble situation to try to clock the ball to give Daniel the same opportunity to kick it. If that decision's out of the way, which it was, you have one other choice, which is to throw it to the end zone. We attempted that on first down. They covered it decent. They were back there. They knew that, that it's really throw it in the end zone or kick a field goal type of scenario. And with 14 seconds left, I just felt like, we could take a shot here and throw one up for grabs. There's not a multitude of plays that I love from the 15-yard line when the defense knows the ball's going into the end zone and all their eyes are going to be on the passer. And so, if something happens in the pass rush and you give up a sack, half ends. If you throw the ball up for grabs and somebody on their team ends up coming down with it, half ends, you have no points. So I really just made the decision that I felt like, let's just take the 3 now. It's probably the most likely scenario anyhow. I would say across the National Football League, there's not many where you're going to throw it in the end zone from the 15 there, and the defense is going to give it up. So that's a decision I made. That's why I made it.
So there you go right there. Pretty lengthy answer on why he thought it was a good decision just to go ahead and go for the field goal and not go for the end zone. I know a lot of people, including myself, weren't big fans of that. And like I said, just because he gave you a 2-minute explanation doesn't mean you have to accept it. But I can appreciate the fact that he had a 2-minute explanation and really broke it down on, okay, this is what was going through my mind when the decision was made to run Daniel Carlson on the field. Final soundbite that I want you to hear from head coach Josh McDaniels is about the 4th and inches play, right? A lot of people, including myself on that one, thought that Derek Carr should have snuck the ball, and they didn't. They tossed it outside to Josh Jacobs, and he doesn't get it. Even though Josh Jacobs had a hot hand on Sunday, 4th and inches, to me, Derek Carr's got to sneak that every time, every day of the week and twice on Sunday. He didn't do that. So Josh McDaniels was asked about the injury to Derek Carr early in the game when he went out for the one play that Jarrett Stidham was in for, if that had anything to do with the decision not to have Derek Carr sneak the ball inside, instead give it to Josh Jacobs on the outside.
No, I got to, we had multiple calls there, but it was a kind of a pick your poison kind of deal, whether you wanted to go inside or outside, and I got to do a better job on that. But no, I think he would tell you he would go inside. That wouldn't have been an issue. Like I said, he got the wind knocked out of him there, but I think he would have been fine doing it.
That was the soundbite from head coach Josh McDaniels. Didn't have anything to do with the Derek Carr injury, just had to do with the fact that he made the wrong call, right? He's got to do a better job of that, and I could appreciate him giving that explanation and basically saying that was my bad. They had a couple different calls and probably should have gone with the most obvious, which is the sneak, but instead decided he was going to go with Josh Jacobs on a pitch, and it obviously didn't work out. Speaking of Josh Jacobs, here's a really cool nugget from NFL Communications that I got on my email. I thought this was really cool. Las Vegas running back Josh Jacobs recorded a single-game franchise record, 303 scrimmage yards, 229 rushing, 74 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, including the game-winning 86-yard touchdown run in overtime as the Raiders beat Seattle 40-34. Jacobs' 86-yard touchdown run in overtime is the second longest overtime rushing touchdown and the fourth longest overtime scrimmage touchdown since 1974, trailing only a 99-yard touchdown pass from Ron Jaworski to Mike Quick. That was November 10th, 1985, and a 96-yard touchdown run by Garrison Hearst September 6, 1998, and an 87-yard touchdown pass from Teddy Bridgewater to Jarius Wright December 7, 2014. Jacobs is the sixth player in NFL history with at least 300 scrimmage yards and multiple scrimmage touchdowns in a single game, joining Clois Dox December 3rd, 1950, Billy Cannon December 10th, 1961, Priest Holmes November 24th, 2002, and Stephon Page December 22nd, 85. Oh, and Adrian Peterson, he's kind of good too, November 4th, 2007. The Raiders have recorded 576 yards of offense, 293 passing, 283 rushing on Sunday, are the fourth team in the Super Bowl era with at least 275 passing yards and 275 rushing yards in a single game, joining the 2012 49ers, who did it October 7th, and then the 1986 Cincinnati Bengals, who did it December 7th, and 78 Cowboys September 4th. So just some cool nuggets right there. When you have a big offensive explosion like that, both rushing the ball and passing the ball, you're gonna have some kind of nuggets like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. NFL Communications does a really good job of sending those out each and every Sunday night. My final little nugget I have for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, news and notes of the day. The Chiefs, they signed a couple guys that you're very familiar with. One, they signed former Raiders wide receiver Bryan Edwards and former Broncos and Chargers running back Melvin Gordon to the practice squad. Of course, Edwards, former Raider, third-round draft pick. Mike Mayock drafted him when he had 3 third-round picks. None of the guys are on the team right now, right? Bryan Edwards obviously was one. They also had Taylor Muse. He was the final third-round pick. And then Lynn Bowden Jr., he was actually the first third-round pick. So it went Lynn Bowden Jr., Bryan Edwards, and at the end of the third round, Tanner Muse. None of those guys are currently on the silver and black. Saw a lot of Raider fans upset that Bryan Edwards is going to, the Chiefs on the practice squad. I don't think it's a big deal. He didn't work out with the Raiders, didn't work out with the Falcons. Don't think he's going to work out with the Chiefs either. He's got to be super deep on the depth chart, right? I mean, the chances of him getting on the field anytime soon aren't good. I wouldn't worry about it. And we know Melvin Gordon is a turnover machine, as we've seen that up close and personal. So I wouldn't worry about that either. But I saw a lot of Raider fans freaking out, still thinking Bryan Edwards is the end-all be-all and the TO guy that John Gruden claimed he was. I don't see it. I'm not worried about it, but just thought I'd pass those news and notes on. So that's all I got for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, news and notes of the day. Coming up in segment number 2, you're going to hear from Michael Ginnitti, Spotrac.com. We'll talk all things Josh Jacobs and his contract, what an extension could look like in season, after season, what the free agent market may look like for running backs, even what the franchise tag may look about like. You'll hear that coming up in segment number 2 after I tell you about Turo. And you're probably wondering, what is Turo, Q? It's the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. Turo can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community or local host. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the U.S., UK, Canada, Australia, and more. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip, or you can get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. They have affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from A to B. And you could test drive that new electrical vehicle if you want to. You might have had your eye on it and wants to know how it fits your everyday lifestyle. Turo is a great way to find out. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars. Find your drive at Turo.com. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Time to jump into the conversation I had Monday on Raider Nation Radio 920 Unnecessary Roughness. That's my radio show with Michael Ginnitti. He is a go-to for me from Spotrac.com, talking all things contracts. And I just want to do a deep dive into Josh Jacobs and what a contract extension in season could look like, what he thinks that Josh Jacobs and his agents will do, just all kind of good stuff when it comes to salary cap. And like I said, more importantly, a contract extension for Josh Jacobs. So here's that conversation from Monday on Raider Nation Radio 920. Just for a running back, and there's plenty of running backs that are going to be free agents this offseason, what do you think a reasonable contract for a top-tier running back is going to look like?
Yeah, it's a test case scenario, right? You're going to have tiers, unfortunately. And honestly, that's good news for running backs. Usually it's quarterbacks and wide receivers are putting in a tier. So it's kind of a good coming day here for the running back position, which has been deflated for a bunch of years now. You're going to put your Barkleys in, and I think Jacobs is getting there in this new conversation, right? So can we get them up to $16 million, which is the current bar? I think we're going to get there. The salary cap is going to help this cause quite a bit. I think it's going to jump up to $220 million, which is significant. whenever we see things like that happen, everybody eats a little bit more. So if I tell you Barkley's going to get McCaffrey's contract, then Jacobs is going to come in right around there. So mathematically, if he's a $12 million running back right now, he might be a $15 million running back when this thing is all said and done. And I do think there's at least one team out there that will do that.
You know, and one of the suggestions I had earlier in the show when we were talking about this is that I think that GM Dave Ziegler and Champ Kelly, the assistant, should get on this now and start the negotiations, or at least start conversating during the season while he's still under contract. He could turn it down, of course, but I just think it would be smart business to try to do that now and get things taken care of even before he hits free agency. What are your thoughts on if they were to try to go that route?
Well, you framed that the right way. They've already declined his option, so he's already got a bad taste in his mouth with this organization, and he's running like he knows it too. He's going to turn it down. There's no question about it. His agent has told him, don't even pick up the phone. But the Raiders absolutely have to start doing business right now, putting together the offers, and obviously taking up backup plans if and when he says no. Look, the franchise tag's not out of the question here, so they've got that in their back pocket. But before they get there, they absolutely should be putting out multi-year option offers to him at this point in time.
That's what I think. I think it would make sense to at least get that conversation started. Again, Michael Ginnitti is our guest from SpoTrack.com here on Raider Nation Radio 920 Unnecessary Roughness. You mentioned the franchise tag, and I remember we talked earlier this season. I thought there was no way they'd do that. Now, like you said, I don't think there's any way that they don't use a franchise tag. I even think there's a chance they might use the exclusive tag. Is that a possibility?
No chance on the exclusive. Okay. There's just too many available running backs to replace him with right now. One might be on the roster already. But I think no question that the $12.5 million tag, which is what it currently projects to, is coming for Josh Jacobs, which is exactly where we have him calculated anyway. So you want to do it for 4 years, you want to do it for 1 year. I think either way, that's going to be the number that we talk about with Jacobs and the Raiders.
You always do a great job looking at contracts and saying, okay, this team could create this much cap space by a bunch of different restructures. When you look at the current Raiders roster and some of the higher-end contracts that they have, how much money do you think that they realistically could create?
Oh, any team can move around about $40 to $50 million in any given offseason. Some teams have to go much more than that just because of the way they do business. The Raiders have done a pretty good job of restricting their restructures. So if any given season they have to go, hog wild with that, they can. And obviously with 4 brand new gigantic contracts last offseason, they're going to have some ability to do that. It's more so about who actually stays on this roster, I think, right now than who gets restructured. But pretty easily, I can get myself to $50 million just with those 3 or 4 big contracts at the top of the list here.
I was looking at Chandler Jones' deal, and he's obviously underperformed what they gave him free agent-wise. But it looks like, and I don't know how to get out of these and what the structure is, but looking at his base salary, it looks really high. You think he's a candidate for a big-time restructure this offseason?
It depends on if they want to keep him around for 2 more years, right? Because that's the game you play. If you feel comfortable with the player's contract 2 years from now, then you have no problem restructuring the next year. But if they think that, 2024 might be an out for him, and that's currently how we see that contract right now, then they're going to leave this thing alone or lightly restructure it just to free up a little bit of cap space. Look, that $20 million hit that he's got next year is going to hurt, but I think they're going to find other ways to free things up because you're right. He's just not putting it out right now.
Talking right now with Michael Ginnitti, SpoTrack.com, Raider Nation Radio 920. My man DeMond's got one for you.
When it comes to the contract structure for most of the top running backs in the league, is there sort of a trend where maybe they get more as a signing bonus as opposed to the actual guaranteed money?
Yeah, it's team by team. These are some of the trends we actually follow. So, it depends on kind of who you're looking at right now. If you look at Dalvin Cook's situation, that's kind of where I have Josh Jacobs going here, which is a more traditional style, big signing bonus, decent first-year salary, and a little bit guaranteed in the second year. You're not going to find a running back, and I'm not even sure Barkley gets there, that's going to have 3 years guaranteed up front. That's just not going to happen at that position anymore. But if you can get 2 years guaranteed on a new contract, you've done something very, very well with your rookie situation. So that's really what you're looking for, high signing bonus, couple of years guaranteed, and that's really where we're going here.
And with the talk of void years, I know that's been a big trend recently in the NFL. But from the fan perspective of people saying, hey, running backs, the tread on the tires and all of that, wouldn't it still make sense if you could at least get 2 good years to make the deal happen while you can?
No question. Look, Derrick Henry's doing it, so everybody's going to have to start doing it now. He's going to continue to do 4-year contracts that are actually 2-year guarantees. And until he actually wears out, he'll continue to sign that. I think he signs another one this offseason in Tennessee. And that is really how we're going here. The days of Zeke Elliott's contracts for this position are just done.
Right.
So like I said, you're getting a 2-year guarantee on a new contract. You're going to have to live with that. and maybe you see that third year, but most likely you're ripping it up and starting over at that point.
Michael Ginnitti, Spotrac.com, is our guest here on Raider Nation Radio 920 Necessary Roughness. We're talking all things contract and salary cap. How does things change? I mean, I know Josh Jacobs, his rookie year, made the Pro Bowl, and so I know that helped his incentives. I know that it helped his, his contract raise and get him some more money. He's going to make the Pro Bowl this year, obviously. What if he wins the rushing? What if he leads the league in rushing and ends up being that guy? How much more does that contract go up?
See, if he had the fifth-year option, it would have gone up, Q. But the fact that they declined that gets him out of that situation. So he's at the mercy of whatever somebody offers him at this point. It won't change the franchise tag value. It won't change anything, permanently for him. He's just going to have to go out there and negotiate himself a better contract, which at this point in time, he's doing a heck of a job of doing.
Yeah, he really is. And like you said, somebody, if it's not the Raiders, somebody's going to pay him. They got a couple guys that they drafted, obviously. They brought in some free agent guys. I just think, for the culture of the locker room and the player he is, it would make sense for them to get him. But, I mean, there's got to be some kind of, allowance that Dave Ziegler has for, okay, this is what we're going to offer for the running back position. And I'm sure that they're going to stick by it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I mentioned a couple of names already, and I threw Derrick Henry's name out there. There's a lot to that. Josh Jacobs is catching the ball a heck of a lot more than Derrick Henry ever will in his career. But if you start looking at what Henry did with that 4-year contract, and then, like I said, he's going to rip it up and restructure it again this year, that's probably a pretty good path for Jacobs to go down. So if we cap it just $12 million a year, we're talking almost $13 a year. If I tell you he's a $15 million running back, somewhere in that ballpark, 2 for 30, 2 for 40, 2 for 35. That's probably about right in terms of the guarantees. And if I'm the Raiders, I'm not going north of that because you're right. This guy has shown he can do it in this team, and there's something to that. But again, there are 12 other running backs available that are legitimate RB1, runners out there. So you just can't break the bank, especially with the roster situation you have right now.
And I know you told us what you're estimating the salary cap to be. What was it again?
Yeah, we're showing 218, but I'm hearing 220, at least 220. It could be 225 if things really break right with that TV money. But I think they'll keep it around the 220 mark.
Final thing, in New England, and that's all we really have to go off of what, they kind of do. They do a ton of restructuring and get down to the salary cap, like the bare bones of it. It feels like almost each and every year. Is that something that you expect Dave Ziegler to probably start doing a little bit here with the Raiders?
Yeah, there's some gamesmanship, isn't there? They always feel like they have no cap space, and then whenever they need the cap space, they find it. Yep. I don't know that they'll go this route. They really haven't earned that kind of gamesmanship in terms of the negotiating style. Every team tries to do it, but they threw around so much money last offseason. They're going to have to play ball a little bit here to keep some of these guys intact. And by the way, probably it means that one of those players is out the door here in order to free up that cap.
Yeah, no doubt. It should be interesting to see how everything shakes out. Well, Michael, fantastic stuff as always. What do you got coming out on Spotrac.com that we need to be on the lookout for?
Oh, I did a 15,000-piece episode on Aaron Rodgers and his financial future, which, by the way, could be Raiders-centric here in the next couple of months. So that's something to check out for sure.
There it is right there. That was Michael Ginnitti, Spotrac.com, and he does a great job. I mean, a really great job each and every time I have him on my radio show. I definitely do appreciate him, and some good nuggets right there. And he thinks that, the Raiders and their representation when it comes to Dave Ziegler and Champ Kelly should start the conversation with Josh Jacobs right now and his agents. Even though they'll reject it, they should at least get the conversation started. And I think that that's what they should do as well. I'm 100% behind that and think that they need to do anything that they can to keep him in town. And I do believe they will, even if it comes down to the franchise tag. They're not going to just let him walk, right? Even though you can get a compensatory pick, I think he's just too valuable and is shown to be too valuable. Well, we'll see what the market looks like for Josh Jacobs. Many thanks to Michael Ginnitti for joining us there. Coming up in segment number 3, your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Before I get that, though, I do want to tell you about Audible. And today's episode of the Locked On Raiders podcast is brought to you by Audible. It's releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. Find Block Forever now wherever you get your podcast. Block Forever is a brand new podcast from former NFL All-Pro Ryan Khalil and Audible. Khalil takes the conversation about football to the next level. He gives football fans an insider's look at the game through the eyes of the greatest players and personalities of all time. He'll sit down with star players, coaches, former pros across the league to get the real about what happens on the field, behind the scenes, inside the locker room, team meetings, back at the hotel, all that good stuff. You'll get it on this show. Christian McCaffrey, he'll talk about his love-hate relationship with fantasy football. Juju Smith-Schuster gives his honest opinions on other players and positions in the league. New episodes of Block Forever will be recorded and released every week ahead of Thursday Night Football. Ryan and guests discuss topics like the player's psyches, sports betting, playing through pain, and a whole lot more. Catch the full Block Forever series available wherever you get your podcasts. Available everywhere now. Audible. Get in the game. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Johnny Raider, he's up first. He's calling in to talk about that extra player who ran on the field after Carr's interception and talks about the team in general. Here he is, Johnny Raider.
Hey, Q, what up? Raider Johnny. You might know me as Johnny Fairway 1. I'm the guy that told you to move back a little bit on the YouTube channel. Anyway, I'd like to talk about the 12th man that jumped on the field and what you think about it. And is there any kind of NFL investigation involved here? Like, does that just happen and it gets overlooked, or what? Is it not true? I'm not real sure, but anyway, just want to hear your thoughts on that. And I'm really excited about the last part of the season. I hope we make a little run like we did last year. Whether we make the playoffs or not doesn't matter. I just want to build. I think we look like we're in the right direction. I just hope we can, win a few games by multiple touchdowns and kind of become the dominant force that we should be. All right, Q, I'll talk to you. Johnny Raider out. Peace.
Johnny, thank you so much for the call, my man. I do appreciate you. And yeah, I saw a bunch of videos following the game of that guy, number 52, running onto the field. And it's so funny. And I'm going to let you hear what head coach Josh McDaniels had to say about that. I think he ran onto the field in celebration. I don't think he ran on the field to be, dirty or trying to cheat or trying to be an extra blocker. He just ended up being that guy when he realized, oh, wow, Diggs isn't down. The play's not over. Oh, boy, I better do something. He just kind of started blocking, but don't take it from me. Here's head coach Josh McDaniels on Monday. He was asked about it by my guy Adam Hill from the RJ and also ESPN Las Vegas, and here's Josh McDaniels' answer about that play in particular. I thought it was pretty cool what McDaniels had to say.
We're the Raiders. Yes, I saw the play. No, I've never seen anything like that before. I think he went out there to celebrate. And then he ended up making a couple blocks there to try to help his buddy. They missed the call, clearly. That should have been a penalty. But I'll leave that at that. So
What did you guys find out?
It is what it is. Huh?
What did you guys find out about it? In game or?
Oh yeah, I saw it right when it happened. I think all of our offensive players came over and said the same thing. 52 wasn't even on the field.
Was that your "We're the Raiders" moment though? Was that it?
I've had multiple of those. I'm aware of the last 20 years relative to the statistics. So we'll see if we can change that a little bit.
So there you go right there. That was the answer from head coach Josh McDaniels. And I'll say this, man. I know that everybody is not a big fan of Josh, but I do think that, his personality, he's starting to really, really embrace being a Raider. And I think that answer he gave right there, we're the Raiders, I think that summed it up perfectly. Got a good laugh from everyone in the media room. So that was good stuff right there from head coach Josh McDaniels. Next up, got a text from Zev in Pennsylvania. Says, Brother Q, didn't get to call or text in last week, but on behalf of Raider Nation, I believe we can all say that we're thankful for the work you do. Now on to the business. Run the damn ball. Josh Jacobs is him, and he need to be the man that this team runs through to see wins. Defense looked a lot better, even though the scoreboard doesn't indicate it. But good Lord, we need to figure out the middle of the field. At the end of the day, a win is a win and is better than a week with a loss. Roll Tide, Zev in Pennsylvania. I agree 100%. That's what I was talking about in segment number 1. Defense looked better. It's not great. It's got a lot to do. It got a lot of work to do, especially the middle of the field, especially with Justin Herbert coming to town. It's not going to be easy, but they did look like at least they were comfortable with understanding what their assignment was. Now, executing it's another thing, but at least they understood what it should be. Thank you so much for that text. I do appreciate you. Next up, got a call from Raider Beck. He's calling to talk about the win and also about who or what he is concerned about. Here he is, Raider Beck, calling out of Concord.
Hey, Q, it's Raider Beck in Concord. Great win yesterday. Love seeing Carr sling the ball around, even when he throws a few picks. he just has that dog mentality where he'll keep bouncing back. That's one thing I love about him. Jacobs is awesome. Max Crosby, none of this happens unless Max Crosby makes those third down stops. One problem, Trevon Moehrig. That guy dropped another interception in the end zone. He dropped one last year that would have won us that game against the Commanders. He drops another one again. He's blowing coverages, and he's dropping interceptions. I know he had to jump for it, but you got to make that catch. I'm worried about that guy. I know you're a big fan of his coming out of TCU. He seems very inconsistent, and for the love of God, please intercept the ball when it's in your hands. All right, Q. Thanks, bud.
Thank you, my man. Appreciate the call. And Trayvon Merrick, in my opinion, actually had a good game on Sunday. He broke up that pass early to DK Metcalf in the end zone, had a chance at that pick that you mentioned, but it was really high, right? I mean, if he had made that play, that would have been incredible. Now, I get it. You know, you get your hands on it. You want to see a guy come down with it, but I mean, you got to give him a little bit of a break. I mean, if we're going to get critical on him for not coming down with the interception, we got to get critical of Deron Harmon for, you know, bobbling the ball on his way down. He had a better chance of intercepting the ball than Merrick. I agree. Merrick needs to take his game to a whole nother level. He's regressed, obviously, since his rookie year, but it did look like he was more comfortable and more understandable of what he's supposed to be doing on Sunday as opposed to what he's done so far this season. He looked like he took major steps back this season, but on that day, on Sunday, he looked a lot better than we've seen all season long. So hopefully he continues to improve. But like you said, he does have a lot to prove as a second-round pick, and I was a big fan of him out of TCU. I still believe in him, but he's got a lot of work to do. Thank you so much, Raider Beck. I appreciate you calling out of Concord. Next up, I got a text from Avant Raider. He says, Q, it's been a rough year. Thanks for being one of the positives. That being said, can you explain to folks why the Raiders will not and do not want to tank the season? I've seen folks upset that the Raiders aren't tanking the season. That's wild stuff. This is Avant Raider from the Bay in LA. And thank you so much for that text. And yeah, I've seen that too. I think it's crazy. First of all, no player in that locker room wants to hear anything about tanking. Those players in the locker room don't give a damn about a draft pick. And honestly, I don't either. I've never been the guy that's like, yeah, go ahead and lose some games, get a better draft pick. What does it mean if you get the number one pick overall? That you have the first chance of screwing it up, right? I mean, just because you get the number one pick, it's not basketball. Basketball, you get the number one overall pick, you get that generational player, it could change the trajectory of your whole franchise. If the Raiders go out and get the number one overall pick and they get whoever they believe is the best guy in the draft, it's still not going to change the franchise. NFL and football is the ultimate team game. You have to have a squad. So as long as you are hitting on your picks, regardless when you get them, most of the guys that are really good on the Raiders are late round picks anyway. Nobody in that locker room wants to hear about, draft capital or next year, whoever they're going to draft, the next guy. No, they want to go out there and win. Devontae Adams don't care about draft picks. Derek Carr don't care about draft picks. Josh Jacobs sure don't care about draft picks. Half the players don't even know if they're going to be on the team next year. You think that they care about what the team's going to be doing after this season? No, they want to win right now. It's just not a reality. Now, I understand franchises may want to put themselves in better position, but the Raiders need to win as many games as possible. They want to win as many games as possible. They want to show that their coaching is also working. It's not something that, oh yeah, these guys don't know what they're talking about. No, they want to see the fruits of their labor pay off. I will never understand why people want to talk about tanking and all that stuff. That doesn't make any sense to me. And again, it's not the NBA where a generational player is that number one overall pick is going to change the whole trajectory of your franchise. It's just not going to happen. And the Raiders have proven too many times they can have a high draft pick all they want, or multiple first round picks all they want, and still doesn't mean they're going to get it done. So thank you so much for that. And I think I may have time for one more quick call. I'm going to try to get one more in real quick, and we'll take this call from Emilio from Rancho Cordova. He's calling to talk about his observations of the offense and has a suggestion he thinks the Raiders should do in the offseason. Here he is, Emilio from Rancho Cordova.
Hey, Q. This is Emilio from Rancho Cordova. That was a really good win yesterday. Really good, hard-fought win by the team. All around, really good. I just wanted to say one thing I've noticed lately is I feel like the offense is doing better without Derek. Not without Derek, but without Waller and Hunter Renfrow. So at the beginning of the year, it was like we had Waller and we had all these weapons for Derek Carr to throw to, and It seemed like they were wanting to pass the ball more, but since they've been out of the game, I've been noticing that our offense is running better through Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams and Derek Carr, more running the ball than throwing the ball. I feel like this offseason, most likely it won't happen because we just re-signed him, but I feel like the Raiders should try to trade Darren Waller because I feel like our offense doesn't really need him with the way that we're playing right now. We are missing Hunter Renfrow for sure, our a second option for him, but I know lately Mac Hollins has been stepping up to the plate. But I don't know, what's your thoughts on that? And love your show or podcast. I listen to it every day before work. Actually on my way to work actually. But hope you have a good day and go Raiders.
Thank you, my man, for the call. And I do think the offense is clicking better right now without Waller and Renfrow, which is crazy to say. But I do think that it just provides them opportunity for Carr and Adams to get on the same page 100%, learn this offense, understand how it's supposed to be executed. And then when Waller and Renfrow are able to come back, or if they're able to return, then all of a sudden McDaniels can figure out how to put them into the mix with Adams. But the core is Adams and Jacobs, like you mentioned, and then everyone else is kind of evolving around it. Mac Hollins, to me, he has been kind of on an island by himself. Yeah, I know he had a few catches on Sunday and he does this, that, and the other, but man, he is a frustrating player because you could tell he has no idea. Even on that Josh Jacobs run that ended the game, the 86-yard touchdown run in overtime, Josh Jacobs said after the game, Mac Hollins didn't even know where he was supposed to line up. And Jacobs told him, just line up, dude. Just line up anywhere. Like, he doesn't know where he's supposed to be. It's like overwhelming to him. And I know he's not a guy that's supposed to be playing all the time. He's supposed to be depth, but right now they need him to step up. And him not knowing the playbook or where to line up, and you see Derek Carr always yelling at him to line up at certain spots. And then when you hear Josh Jacobs say he didn't even know where to line up, and he just said, hey, dude, just line up and we'll go from there. And then he took it to the house. He's got to do better. Mac Hollins, if he's going to be in the game as much as he is, he's got to be better than that. You see how many times Carr and him are not on the same page. The ball goes one way, Hollins goes another way. Carr has a look on his face. Hollins has a look on his face. He's got to do better than that as far as I'm concerned. That's all I got for you for today's show. Got a text from Raider 783 we'll get to start tomorrow's show off, or at least segment 3 of tomorrow's show. We'll have plenty of calls and texts. We'll have news and notes of the day, and we'll have plenty of conversation as well as we begin to start turning the page and look forward to the Chargers headed to town, Allegiant Stadium, this Sunday. It's going to be fun. So that's all I got time for you, Raider Nation. Definitely appreciate you. As always, thanks so much for making the show your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the Locked On Raider podcast free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Ari's doing a great job getting it done, holding it down. At Ari Produces on Twitter, and any kind of suggestions you have for him, make sure you tweet it at him and let him know about it. And he'll listen to what you got to say and do what he got to do. Right. So, Ari, thanks so much. I do appreciate you, my man. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family, and most importantly, as always, just win, baby.